All right. I think I think we should get started. I'm hoping that we have a nice critical mass joining us today already. So hopefully people start to join while I'm talking. We'll just pick right up along with us. So hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to be hosting this Danone North America virtual farm tour. We are lovingly calling it our Journey from Cow to Cup. You'll get a peek behind the scenes of our dairy-based products. So I think many of you already know me, but some probably don't. I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is Amanda Bleckman. I am a Senior Manager of Scientific Affairs at Danone North America. We are incredibly proud to be a certified B Corporation. And what that means is we have a mandate to do good. We are a mission and purpose-driven company. And while many companies exist to turn a profit, our purpose is also to do good for people and to do good for the planet. We're so excited to have all of you joining us today. I think it'll be really informative to take a look behind the scenes. We're so excited that we have this event that's hosted by our beloved dairy farms, McCarty Family Farms and MVP Dairy. We know that the average consumer is generations removed from the farm, and people are looking more and more to RDs like yourselves to provide answers on everything related to food, including farming practices. I don't know about you guys, but when I was getting my degree, it was not a mandatory course to learn much about farming. And so we really appreciate you guys taking the time to learn more about what we do, to learn about the relationship that we have with our dairy farms and our farmers and how our products are made. So we're going to do our best to get to all questions. I know that there was a question in the chat already about asking questions. We have all the questions that you guys shared in the recent questionnaire, and we're going to do our best to answer those throughout the tour. We also encourage you to continue to put questions into the chat box, which we'll be monitoring, and we're going to, they may be answered already throughout the tour, or we'll have some various stopping points, and we'll do our best to address all of them in the designated question and answer sessions. So with that, I would like to introduce our two amazing hosts, Ken McCarty, who is a fourth generation dairy farmer and co-owner of McCarty Family Farms and MVP Dairy. And he'll be joined along with team member Allison Ryan, who is the director of marketing and communication. She oversees the Dairy Learning Center, which is on site at MVP Dairy. So with that, I will turn it over to our host, and we can't wait to get started.
Oh, and sorry, real quick before I'm going to interrupt. Sorry, we forgot to address the Q&A in the answers. So I think there was a question there, Amanda, unless I missed it. If you guys can use the Q&A to prompt some questions, we can certainly get those answered. If you would prefer to have access to have the video on and have that viewable, we can give you that. Just put that in the chat that you would like to ask it yourself. So
great point. And then one more thing that I forgot to mention is if you haven't already, it might be a good idea to put your view on speaker view so that you can have whoever's speaking up nice, up close and personal. And with that, I will officially turn it over to our host for the day.
Great. So thank you for that. And hello, everyone. My name is Ken McCarty, and as was mentioned earlier, I'm one of the co-owners of McCarty Family Farms and MVP Dairy. I'm coming to you today from Rexford, Kansas, in the extreme northwest corner of Kansas. And I did notice that on the pre-survey, at least one of you had been to Kansas. So, you know, that's more than most people. I'm a fourth generation dairyman. My great grandfather started our family's farm in northeastern Pennsylvania in the early 1900s. With a very small farm, very typical northeastern Pennsylvania dairy, red barn, cows out on pasture on the side hill. In the 40s, my grandfather took that farm over, and my mom and dad took that farm over in the early 70s. And in the mid 90s, my parents began to look for opportunities for my brothers and I. I'm the youngest of four brothers. They began to look for opportunities that would allow my brothers and I to come back to the farm. And that led us to looking throughout the United States for areas to relocate to. The farm in Pennsylvania just wasn't large enough to support my parents and my three brothers and I. And the future of animal agriculture in particular in that area was becoming challenging at best. So we eventually landed here in Northwest Kansas. We made this move in 1999 and began the farm here that I'm coming to you from in April of 2000. We started milking about 800 cows here in April 2000, and we've steadily expanded since then for a variety of different reasons. And in 2007, we started our sister farm through a collaboration with a local economic development fund that wanted to grow their school districts and grow their school enrollment and local economic development. So we started the dairy that my brother Mike manages in Bird City, Kansas. That took our total herd size at the time to about 3,500 milking cows. And we were selling our milk at that time into what would be considered a traditional co-op model, which meant we had limited control over market conditions, but we also had limited connection to where our product went. And we felt that there was less value being placed on things that were important to our family and important to our business. Things like animal welfare, things like improved milk quality or environmental sustainability or social responsibility. So we began to look for other opportunities, other ways in which we could sell our milk. That led us to a variety of different conversations, but ultimately it led us to a conversation with Dannon, or Danone North America today. And their vision of greater transparency and traceability and reduced market fluctuations and our vision of the same thing were immediately aligned. And that meeting took place in April of 2010. But you know, obviously concepts are great, but concrete and steel are a different concept. So over the course of 2 years, we grew our farms, we established the relationship, we built an on-farm milk condensing plant here at the Rexford Dairy that I'm at. And we took on a third dairy and moved our herd size at that point to about 7,000 milking cows. And that began the Dannon relationship. And that relationship took place or began officially in April of 2012. Since then, we've been able to increase our processing capacity through our processing plant. And you're gonna have to forgive me, I'm getting some love in here by one of the girls. But we were able to increase our processing capacity through our milk processing plant. And that led us to taking on an additional dairy, a fourth farm located in Nebraska, and moved our herd size to about 8,500 cows. And we still had an appetite for growth. We're young. I'm only 38, and we want to grow our business. We want to grow our relationship with Dannon. So that led us to exploring other options for growth, and that ultimately led us to Ohio, where we became connected to another local farming family, the Van Tilburg family, and that led to the partnership that became MVP Dairy. We started MVP Dairy, which is today milking about 3,900 cows in Saline, Ohio. We started that in November of 2018. And today, net across the 5 farms, we milk about 13,000 cows. All of our farms are non-GMO project verified. All of our farms are B Corp certified, and all of our farms are Validus Animal Welfare certified, or I should say Validus Dairy Care certified, which means that our farms have completed the Validus Animal Welfare audit, the Validus Environmental Care audit, the Validus Worker Care audit, and we also do the Validus on-farm security audit. We're also farm certified, which is an additional environmental and animal welfare certification, and BQA certified. So very heavily involved in the third-party certifications, second or third-party certifications, and very deeply involved in our relationship with Dannon. Have no plans of slowing down, have further ideas to continue our growth, but also, you know, our dad's always challenged my brothers and I with the comment that, if you're not growing, you're dying. And what he means by that is not necessarily to grow in size, but to grow in productivity and to grow in innovation. And so we're embarking on the regenerative ag journey with our partners at Dannon and with our local farmer partners here that support and feed our farms. So we're moving to the effort to become a carbon neutral dairy. Whether or not we can achieve that is yet to be determined, but we're hopeful that through the support of our local communities and through the support of our partnership with Dannon and through adopting some innovative and best practices, we can achieve that. So looking forward to hosting you guys today and looking forward to answering your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison at MVP. So Allison, it's all yours, buddy.
Sure. Thanks, Ken. So I'm so excited to have you guys virtually today. I wish this was all in person, but this is much easier for travel right now, right? But as Ken said, we are located in West Central Ohio. So I actually am from the area originally, about 30 miles south of here. My family has about 400 registered Holsteins. So I've been born and raised on a dairy all my life, but my background in terms of education is animal sciences and agricultural communications. So before coming here at MVP, I worked for about 11 or 12 years at the American Dairy Association, the Mideast region, and basically got connected with these guys because of their willingness to invite people in and share a little bit more about what we do here. We do have a dairy education center on site here that we welcome in lots of guests and kind of break down a lot of the commonly asked questions. So we're so excited that you guys are taking time today because in a lot of cases, you guys are probably getting similar questions than what we do here on the farm, especially when people are looking at their dairy labels and trying to decipher what's what and what that means for how those dairy foods were produced. So a quick snapshot of what it looks like here at the dairy. We are in one of our freestall barns that you can see. So unlike Ken's sunny weather that he has in Northwest Kansas right now, we're dealing with the typical Ohio weather of it is pretty dreary and rainy, and I'm glad I'm under a roof right now. But the cows actually are probably loving this weather more than we are because they actually enjoy the cooler temperatures. So as you can see, all these girls behind me are eating. We are home to about 4,500 Holstein cows. So the black and white cows are the most common dairy cow that you're going to find across most of the United States. About 90% of the dairy herds across the nation do milk Holsteins. They're the largest animals, so the largest breed. So they weigh about 1,500 pounds. We are milking 3,800 right now, but as I said, we do have 4,500 on site. A portion of those cows are dry cows, or what we would call dry or on vacation, and not being milked currently. But we are situated on about 83 acres. All our cows are housed in what we call freestall barns. We have six 6-row freestall barns. So all of them are connected also then to our milking parlor. So we'll actually take a peek in and see those cows going around our carousel milking parlor here shortly. But I'm going to walk you through the barns and kind of share a little bit more about what we do here. So one of the first things that you guys may notice is all of this feed in front of the ladies. Believe it or not, we actually work with a dairy nutritionist to formulate a specific diet for all these ladies. So depending on, we treat cows a lot like athletes. So as you guys know, there are fluctuations in dietary needs based on how productive that cow is, or in athlete's term, how productive that athlete is. So if you think about dairy cows, they're going to be more in that marathon running kind of athletic diet. Whereas like if we were raising beef cattle, for example, you'd be looking more at like your weightlifter, football player kind of diet. So we have, I'll pull this up here and get close. So it's all mixed in here. So it's hard to pick apart what each of the ingredients are, but it's made up of what we call corn silage. So we actually will harvest the corn our non-GMO corn when it's green. So, skip over the harvest corn appearance that dry corn that you're thinking. We harvest it when it's green. We chop the entire corn plant, and then we put that in what we would call a bunker silo. If you've ever been past a dairy or you have an idea of that traditional look of a dairy farm where there's those old silos, that would be what's traditionally stored in there is corn silage. So we ferment that corn silage because we're harvesting in the fall, and that way we can store up enough corn silage all year round. We're only harvesting in the fall, so that's a really important key to making sure we have enough food and nutrition to feed our cows year round. Now, some other things that you find in here, we do have vitamin and mineral mixes as well as alfalfa hay. We do feed a variety of byproducts. So there is some cottonseed in the diet as well, which would be the byproduct of the cotton industry. Depending on the availability, sometimes we have some wet brewer's grain, but it's primarily or how we kind of do that. Oh, and I should mention, we also have whey protein that we receive back from the dairy plant because we're from the Minster Dannon plant because we're only about 20 miles from there. We put all this in a big, what looks like an oversized giant blender, and we chop it all up. So if you think of smoothies, how you can get a lot of good nutrients all packed into it and you can't sort through or figure out that, wow, the smoothie has spinach in it. If I could only do this for my kids, I'd be in so much better shape on meeting all their needs. But we do that because cows, just like kids, will pick through and get out all the goodies. And we want to make sure that every single bite that these ladies take is perfectly balanced. So like I said, just like kids, right? So some other things that we have going on in here. As you see, these ladies have what looks like a necklace or a collar. So each one of them has an activity tracker. So that's going to work like your smartwatch or your Fitbit, and it's going to track their activity. Because we do have 4,500 cows on site, we do have about just under 40 team members that help take care of those. But in a lot of cases, when you see a decreased level of activity on those cows, or maybe something's out of the ordinary, that tracker is going to pick up on that before they even start showing visible signs of maybe an ailment. So we can actually get her in front of the care team and get her checked out before maybe it becomes an issue. So they spend about 12 to 14 hours a day resting here in our freestall barn. So they are bedded on sand bedding. We like sand because the cows like it. It's soft. It's inorganic, so it cuts down on potential bacteria growth. And we also like it because we can wash it and recycle it and pull it back in here for use. So these girls go into the milking parlor 3 times a day, and every time they go in, we can flush these alleyways clean. We can rake out the backs of them, make sure that they're clean and soft, and we can add sand when it's needed. Now, these barns are built on a 2% slope. So how we clean them in terms of our alleyways where the cows are standing is we can send about 9,000 gallons of recycled water down through the alleyway to carry out any of that dirty sand, any of that manure, and keep these alleyways clean for the cows. That eventually goes out to our sand lane, and we'll see that here, or we'll get into that a little bit more in a bit. But the idea is to keep these cows as comfortable and as clean as possible. That way we can prevent any kind of medical issues that they could have. Now, just like us, there are times where cows do get sick. So we work with Ohio State University. They send a team of veterinary students and their teachers over to basically do what we would call our normal herd health checks, and work with them to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep these girls healthy. So some other things that you're going to see on these cows, they do have a EID button in their ear. and that's going to be their permanent identification, and it also communicates with our milking parlor. So in terms of record keeping and keeping all these ladies apart, we have several ways that we can keep track and record keep on them. Now, you also see all their earrings that they have. Those earrings are going to be a little bit like our social security numbers, right? It's going to be their number that we use to log all that information. That way we know exactly what her entire history is. Some other things that I will mention, we do have several fans overhead. So one of the things I mentioned, the bad weather earlier, cows do like it cooler. So when it gets hot, that's even more vital that we're keeping all the airflow moving through these barns. So we have about a 7-mile-an-hour wind speed that goes over these cows to keep fresh air moving. We pull it in from an open curtain and then back out through here with the wall of fans. And then on the sides, so if you've ever been to a dairy, traditionally you would see the curtain on the sides. Ours are on the end. This is all polycarbonate siding, so it's like your industrial sunglass material. So that keeps the UV rays out and off, and helps keep lots of natural sunlight in for the cows. Another thing to mention, we like to do our part in here. The cows do spend their time in here. If they're not in the milking parlor, they're out here. And although they're only in the milking parlor for a short amount of time, we look at ways of providing enrichment for the cows. One of the things that we do, we have 23 swinging cow brushes, and you might have caught it before, but we passed it. So it's a cow brush that the cows at their leisure can go up and get a back scratch, but it also helps helps kind of keep them cleaner on the back. It's going to groom their coats, and it's going to provide that extra element of comfort. Some other things you'll see in here, we do have misters that are on a variable rate frequency. So depending on how hot it gets or what the humidity level is, our fans can speed up. Those misters will provide a mist over the cows to cool them off, just like you're, at a theme park or whatever, when you're standing there on those hot days and you need that cool mist. We can tap into that optimum cooling effect by wetting their backs down a little bit, getting that extra airflow over them, and they are cool and comfortable. One of the things we look for when we're in our barns and we're checking our cows out, I know you're not here, so you can't hear, but the only noises you hear in here are machinery, the fans, the team members moving in and out, bedding and feed, but you don't hear cows mooing. And everyone's always surprised by that because you expect, hey, we're at a dairy farm, we should hear cows mooing. Well, when we're doing our job and our cows are comfortable, they are content and they're not looking for something else. They've got their herd mates, they've got their feed, they've been milked, they're comfortable. So if the cows aren't up here eating, we like to see them laying down. You got a good shot there of what those stalls look like. So our stalls are designed to allow enough comfortable space for the cows to step in, lay down, or to get up and get out, because that way they're not turning around, going to the bathroom in the front of their stalls, and potentially laying in manure. So it's kind of, if you can imagine when you're laying at the beach and you're snuggled down in the sand, it does that same kind of effect for them, because that sand's going to mold to their body. I mentioned before that we do use the flush system to clean out the alleyways here. It's going to actually be carried out underneath here and then onto the other side of the our barn. And if you guys are interested in how that all works, there is a video on our website at mvpdairyllc.com under our environment section, because we can show you a video. It flushes about 5 times a day, and I know when I had come out here, this one had just been flushed, so it's all on an automated timer. I can't just trigger it for you right now, but definitely check that out. So how that all works is the sand is heavier than the liquid portion of this manure, so the sand settles to the bottom. We're able to scrape that sand out and clean it and reuse it in here. The rest of those nutrients go on to be used for for our fields and to grow the crops for the cows here. So before I get into a new subject, into a new spot, I do want to ask or take a minute to see if there are any lingering questions about cow care. We are going to get in to go see the cows being milked, but over anything that I've already covered, if there are any questions, now would be a great time to ask those. So.
Yeah, I'm scrolling back to make sure I don't miss anything. There was a lot of love for the cow smooches, which I think probably made us all smile. So there's a question about how are farmers innovating as milk sales are slowing. I think that one was maybe for Ken.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, great. And that's a great question, and it's a very poignant one given the current market conditions that a lot of farmers are facing. And as a whole, I think the U.S. dairy industry is shifting towards larger, more consolidated farms and away from smaller, more spread out farms. Very similar to the local Main Street here in rural America that we're shifting away from the local mom and pop hardware store to larger stores that can survive better the market fluctuations. But what is also an emerging trend that we're seeing is a lot of on-farm production, things like farm scale cheese, farm scale bottling, or innovative practices on farm that would differentiate their product. The shift towards, for example, A2 milk. That's something that's becoming more and more common within the U.S. dairy industry, and it's something in all actuality that our farms are pursuing as well. So, I think there's a variety of different ways farmers are trying to survive very challenging times. Some are through relationships like what we have with Danone North America that help us mitigate those market risks. And others are more based on, eliminating the middleman and producing that cheese that we all like to consume right here on the farm and delivering it direct to the consumer. So, lots of ways to skin that cat. And it's not a one size fits all methodology, but there are a ton of ways that people are pursuing survival ultimately within the dairy industry.
Thanks, Ken. I also want to just throw in a fun fact about Ken. His wife is a dietitian. Yeah. I remember we met years ago and you told me that, and I was very excited. So we're in good company today.
Yep. My diet is monitored strictly, and yeah, like our cows here, I have an on-staff nutritionist that makes sure that I eat what I'm supposed to. So yeah, she's a clinical dietitian and a CDE. So if I ever get diabetes, I'm thinking I'm going to get divorced. So it'll be all right.
Yeah, and Ken, while you have the mic, and I know questions might still be coming in, but I'm going to make the transition into the milking parlor. If you want to keep fielding questions while I make my way in, and also kind of give a little bit more on the scope of what growing feed and what we're doing in the fields looks like.
Sure, absolutely. So before I move to that, are there any other open questions that you all would like me to address?
I'm seeing some. There's one question. How long do cows stay on vacation from milking?
Yeah. So that vacation is what we term the cow's dry period. Dry meaning that she's not producing milk. And what happens there is when a cow reaches a certain stage in her pregnancy, on our farms, it's roughly between 225 and 231 days carrying calf. We're going to dry her off, which means that she's going to get vaccinated. She may or may not receive an antibiotic treatment, and she'll receive an internal teat sealant, and she'll go, in essence, on vacation, where her only responsibility is to eat, drink, socialize, and rest and prepare for her upcoming calving. That dry period, or her vacation time, is going to last on our farms roughly 55 to 60 days. Lots of farms do that differently, but typically the industry standard is going to be around 50 to 60 days of of a dry period. A cow's gestation length is exactly the same as a human, so roughly about 283 days. And yeah, about 60 days of that is going to be spent just laying around.
Thank you. Another question that I saw a couple times was, what are the red marks on the backs of some of the cows?
Yep. And I typed an answer back in there, but the red marks on our cows are, they serve two purposes. We call it tail chalk. And the first purpose that it serves is, you know, we group our cows based on age and stage of lactation. We try never to put a first lactation cow, that is a cow that's just had her first calf, in with a cow that's a second lactation or greater cow, in essence, a more mature animal. By avoiding that, we're avoiding mixing the JV team with the varsity. And so we keep cows in a very defined pen grouping strategy. And by marking these cows with different colored tail chalk, it allows us to, if and unfortunately when cows do get mixed up, it gives us a very simple and fast way of sorting those cows back out to the pen from which they came. But it also serves another very important purpose, and that is to help our breeding team identify cows that are in heat or in estrus and that are ready to be bred. When a cow is in estrus, she'll stand and another cow will ride her and in essence rub that tail chalk off. So it gives our breeding teams a very visual, simple cue to identify those cows that are ready to be artificially inseminated.
Great, thank you. Allison, do we have time for another one or two? Because I think I see some quick ones.
Yep, we do.
Okay, great.
That's fine.
So there's a question, and I'm really sorry. I hope there's not too much background noise for me. How many times a day is your water recycled on the dairy?
Yeah, so here at the Rexford farm, we have a very unique setup in that we have an on-farm evaporative milk condensing plant. And for those of you that are familiar with Northwest Kansas, we sit atop what's called the Ogallala Aquifer, which is a depleting groundwater source, ancient groundwater source. So water conservation in McCarty Family Farms, both here in the West and also in the East, is an absolutely foundational principle. And the evaporative milk condensing plant here serves one gigantic advantage when it comes to our environmental sustainability goals. And that is that we remove roughly 65,000 gallons of fresh water a day from the milk during that condensing process. So that allows us to reduce our draw on the Ogallala and also diminishes our freight of finished goods when we deliver products from the processing plant here to the Dannon plants around the country. But on average, water on our farm here in Rexford is going to be recycled, I could say through a limitless way, but you know, for the sake of empirical numbers, I would say on average about 4 times. One, the cow is going to drink that water. It's going to be converted into milk. It's going to be recycled from the processing plant, which that water could then travel back through our mister lines to cool those cows. Ultimately, it ends up in our lagoon structures, which that water then is recycled back as Allison mentioned earlier, as flush water to clean the barns. And the last way that water is used is we use it as supplemental irrigation water on the fields that grow crops for our cows. So ultimately, some of that water does return back to the cow in the form of corn silage. So we have a very efficient and effective method of recycling water on our farms. And the MVP dairy that we're touring today, while we don't have an evaporative condensing plant there, we are recycling some of that water that the cows consume, not only to flush the barns and irrigate crops, but through the way that we feed back to our cows that we receive from the Dannon plant in Minster.
Great, thank you. I can't remember if I asked this already or not. What is the average lifespan of a dairy cow?
Very good question. So the average lifespan of a dairy cow in the U.S. dairy industry is right around 2.4 lactations. That would mean she is about 5.5 years old. McCarty Family Farms and MVP are better than that. Thankfully, we are averaging about 3 lactations. which means, and that keep in mind that that is an average number, which means that our cows are closer to 6 years old when they may or may not depart the farm. But that being said, every cow is a unique individual. So we have cows in our farm today that have been milking for 11 lactations. So they would be, just by simple math, they would be 13 to 14 years old, but not every lactation is the same length. We assume that a lactation is 365 days roughly, but we have cows in our farm that could be 15, 16, 17 years old, which is incredibly old for a dairy cow. Good questions, by the way.
Great, thank you. There's one more question that's open in the Q&A about like selecting what ingredients go into the feed. I feel like Allison did touch on that. It was a little bit about the difference between grass-fed or grass-finished. Does that really mean just grass or other things? But I think Allison definitely covered some of the other things that go into the feed.
Yeah, so what I can say to that is that none of our farms are certified grass-fed. Each of those certifying bodies, and the devil's in the details about a lot of those certifications. So it's important to work with reputable groups that truly hold your farm accountable to those standards. So I can't really speak to the grass-fed certifications, but what I can say about the overall nutrition of our cows is that both in the West and in the East, we work with a PhD nutritionist, ruminant nutritionist that specifically designs diets that are geared for the age and the stage of lactation that our cows are in. So cows that are approaching giving birth are fed a diet that is specific to the needs of not only the cow, but also to the growing calf. Our milking cows are fed diets specific to meet their caloric and their nutrient needs. And he's out on our farm once a month. I just had a conversation with him this morning, and we're testing feed routinely multiple times a month. So we put forth a tremendous amount of effort to make sure that our cows are fed the amount of feed that they want to eat. We feed, ad nauseum. Cows can consume as much feed as they want, and that those feeds are nutritious and safe and balanced to meet their specific dietary needs.
Yeah. Well, not to stop all these great questions. We are in the parlor, so I was gonna, we have time for some more questions after we get through here. But if I can jump in, we'll get started in here. Is everyone good?
That's perfect, Allison.
All right. So what's going on here, and we'll do a top down view as well. But we're walking around the carousel here where the cows' udders have been prepped, and you can see this gentleman here is putting the milker on. So our milking style is actually called a milking carousel or rotary style parlor. So the cows are actually rotating while the milker is being put on. And so we'll do a top down view here shortly. But what's happening is the cows are going to enter in. They actually will have their teats cleaned, and we just switched groups here. So you're going to see a couple of empty stalls here. So let's get back where the action is. You can see once Michaela catches up with me here, we have two stations that these cows walk in. And one is essentially providing a sanitizing solution from the base of their udder to the tip of their teat. And it's using like a soft bristle brush. So you can see the cows shifting weight. It's not a painful thing. It's just it's first time they're being touched while they're on here. So they're just shifting their weight. But then the second stage that they go through here is basically the dry brush that wicks that sanitizing solution, that moisture away. So that within 90 seconds of the cows entering into the carousel, that triggers the cow's milk letdown hormone. So they're producing a milk letdown hormone that just tells their body, okay, we're going to let that milk down. We can be milked. So what happens then, you saw the milker being put on. They're going to continue the ride around the carousel for it takes 8 minutes to make a full rotation, but that milker is only attached for about 4.5, 5 minutes of that. Because if you recall earlier, we talked about the EID tags that they had in their ears. So we know exactly what cow is being milked and when. And so that the flow of that milk is metered. Basically, that's coming from the cow. So once it's below a certain threshold, you're going to see that milker automatically pop off. So as they're making their just slow rotation around, they'll start to pop around at about that 4.5 minute mark. Otherwise, they just hang out on this carousel, kind of calmly and coolly rotate around here. Now, the one challenge that we really have with this type of milking system is sometimes we have cows that want to re-ride or maybe stay on. But for the most part, the cows are entering in and leaving the parlor really at their own sort of regard. They I'm gonna head. I hope I don't lose you because I know my service gets a little bit spotty in here. But we're gonna go all the way around because just a couple weeks ago, side here, because once these units pop off, they have to go through what we call our post-dip station or a post station where they'll receive an iodine-based solution to coat the teat ends. And that's important because the teat ends are very much like pores. So when they've had that milker on, that pore is going to be open, and we want to add that protective layer on her teats before she goes back into the milking parlor. So she's not getting anything in her teat canal. So here's our robot. I still think she needs a name. So maybe if you guys come visit me by then, this robot will have a name. But she does her thing here. I don't know why I think she's a she, but through a series of sensors, and I hope you guys can see how she's working really well. But I can't really get in there. She's in a protective little space that keeps her safe from just action around here. But anyway, we just put that in a couple weeks ago, and it seems to be doing the trick. But so far so good. It seems to be working. But like I said, we've only had it for 2 weeks, so kind of a cool way that we incorporate technology into our day-to-day here. And I know Ken had kind of touched on it too, and I did too. But when it comes down to it, the advanced technology that we have today really helps us make a lot of the decisions here at the dairy. You know, everything is very closely monitored and checked, and takes a lot of maybe the human error out of things. Another thing to give you a quick peek at. So this would be one of our computer systems here. You can see shaped just like the carousel. We have the numbers here. We know exactly what cows and what stall, and we can get some real-time health information from those cows. So I'm going to actually make the trip up to the top of our carousel so you guys can see this from the top down. But as I'm making my way over there, are there any questions about the milking carousel or the milking process? I will mention one of the things that is really unique about dairy and milk is one of the few foods out there that is really closed system, and it's never touched by human hands because it's coming directly from the cows at about 99 degrees. It's going through our filtration system, through our a rapid cooling system, and it's going directly onto the tanker trucks to be sent to Danone North America in Minster. I'll give you just a quick peek of our clean room here with the filtration and cooling system going on there. Some tracking meters there on the end. But are there any lingering questions out there?
Yep, there are a couple. So there was a question: how do the cows enter the parlor?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
You'll actually be able to see that when I get to the top view. So let's skip that one. Are there any others?
Yep, there was another question. How common is this carousel system?
So in Ohio, it's very uncommon. Across the US, there are a good amount. It takes a certain size dairy farm to make this kind of system efficient. I don't know a number off the top of my head, but it is common. I will share that the sophisticated side of this with the technology that we mentioned, this is kind of the latest and greatest in terms of what De La Valle has been manufacturing. That's who created the parlor. So there are a lot of systems out there, but maybe not quite as advanced just yet. Ken, do you have any guesses on I mean, I'd say these are becoming the new normal in terms of when you get past a certain size dairy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's incredibly easy on the cow. In fact, kind of a short story. When we first started the dairy there at MVP, cows enjoyed riding the rotary so much that we actually had to stop the carousel and push cows off the rotary. It's like my kids at a playground. You know, they didn't want to stop. But as farms begin to get larger and strive for greater levels of efficiency, but also as robotics become more scalable within dairy farms, rotary parlors like what you're seeing there in MVP are becoming the trend within large scale dairy farms, just simply due to the happiness of the cows that are on them, the ease on the people that have to work with them, and the ability to scale up robotics on them.
The button. Yeah. With that, you know what? I'm going to pause on the questions for a minute. And Crystal, can you gear up? We're going to take a brief minute to show kind of the next step in this milk producing process while I make my way up there, and we'll field some more questions when we get up there. So, you know, I did mention before that we are a dairy learning center. So we have a viewing deck that provides that nice top-down view where we can see where the cows are entering and heading out. So, Crystal, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Allison.
Hey, Crystal, I'm not getting any sound, and I think I'm seeing some comments that some others are not getting sound on the video either.
Okay, bear with me. Let me try again.
This is always the hardest part, figuring out how to share your sound.
Sorry. I'm back up, but I guess I see that Crystal's having a little technical difficulty, it looks like. So while she's figuring that out, why don't we, I'm back up here if you guys hear me okay. We'll just continue on the carousel, and if she gets that figured out, we'll come back to that. If not, we can certainly send you guys a follow-up link. So if that sounds okay to you guys. So can someone give me an okay that you guys, I'm back up and reconnected up here?
We can hear you, Allison.
Someone give me an okay. Perfect. Sorry, I lose service when I make the step from down there and up here. So as you can see, we have the ladies on deck out there, and they're gonna come in and enter in through that gate. They step on. It does take about 3 days worth of milkings to get them kind of used to that system. Occasionally there is someone down there that's going to shuffle those ladies around to help guide them in and out. It does look like they're getting a little bit congested in there, so someone will probably have to pop in and make sure that they're moving those cows in and out. Generally speaking, these cows are creatures of habit. So once they learn kind of the system, it's pretty easy to get them in and out. I'm thankful I was not on the team when they first brought cows in here, because as I recall, a herd that was purchased to bring in here when we first started, everyone was excited that they were already carousel trained or used to being milked in this type of system. However, our system rotates counterclockwise, whereas the system they were trained on rotated the opposite direction. So there was a little bit confusion from these poor ladies that are used to their habits. So there is a little bit of a learning curve with this kind of system, but like I said, after about 3 days, they're good to go. So one thing I should mention, because I know it's hard to see virtually, but as the cows enter in and leave, what happens is that tag is scanned, and then they know that, hey, we've got this cow, she's due for, maybe a hoof trim. So that can actually happen as soon as she leaves the milking parlor. So if she's due for any kind of just what we'd call general maintenance or general animal care, that can happen as soon as she leaves the parlor, versus having to go and find her later and take her out of her normal routine. That works real well for us here. Another thing that I do want to mention about the system, so we can actually milk about 550 cows in here an hour. And I always tell my groups that come in when I get questions like, oh, I used to milk cows by hand, or I envisioned that style of milking. Well, as a comparison, by hand, you can do 6 cows an hour. So 550 cows an hour here, or 6 cows an hour by hand. So we've gained a tremendous amount of efficiency. So let's see if there are any more questions that are lingering. We do have some more time.
There aren't any right now in the chat or Q&A. So while we give everyone a chance to add some more questions, maybe we want to try the video again.
Yeah, Crystal, do you have that set?
Actually, Stephanie is gonna help.
It says Stephanie is disabled.
How about this? So basically, and I apologize for the mix up on the video, but we can send that link to you guys after for viewing. It just kind of shows you those final stages of what happens when milk leaves the farm. So one thing I do want to mention, we talked earlier about that our milk does go directly onto the tanker trucks. When it's cooled down to about 35 degrees and on those tanker trucks, we're sending that immediately over to Danone North America. There are a series of tests that are run before milk can be unloaded, basically safety and quality checks. And before that milk can be unloaded, it has to pass all those tests to go into be made into yogurt. So I'm happy to share that link afterwards for everyone to view. I think that'll be easier. But one thing we haven't really talked a lot about is how I know Ken mentioned earlier that we are a B Corp certified dairy farm. And the reason we are able to have achieved that B Corp status and kind of pulling everything in. So if you're not as familiar with the B Corp certification process, it's really a deep dive or a deep look into our practices as a dairy farm and as a business. So not only are we looking at how we do business, we're also looking at how we're implementing sustainable standards and regenerative farming into our work. But one thing that we have, and we're only, as Ken mentioned, McCarty Family Farms is also a B Corp certified dairy. We only know of one other dairy in the world that has achieved that. So we're among the very few. But a lot of our sustainability efforts do revolve around our cows. Our cows actually if we're doing everything we can in terms of feeding them the right things, we're doing the right things with genetic improvement and management. We are keeping things calm and routine in here in the milking parlor. All of those resources we used to get to that point are more efficiently and effectively used through a well cared for cow. So today our cows are actually producing about 101 pounds a day, which is roughly 12 gallons of milk each day per cow. So the amount of milk that we get today with generally the same amount of resources is significantly more. And so everything that we do really revolves around that cow. That cow's manure in our eco cycle does go back into our fields to then grow to basically feed that soil, help that maintain and improve that soil's health. That feed's going to be eventually harvested, fed back in here to our cows, and then as kind of the full circle, those cows are also producing a very healthy, nutrient-rich food that we can then nourish ourselves. So it's just really, I mean, I'm part of the dairy industry, part of the dairy world, and I still get blown away by kind of that perfect eco cycle that we have going on here. And that all really fits into our B Corp certification as well, because we're, with B Corps, it's really not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. And so it's exciting to see the innovation and our tried and true practices really kind of coming together to create milk and dairy foods today more sustainably than ever before. So people always become a little bit hung up on what's going on in the fields and forget that sometimes our cows are, our land and soil needs our cows as much as our cows need the land and soil. So with that, are there any more questions for Ken or I, or are there any for any of the Danone team that's also on staff or also on the call?
I'm not seeing anything come through on the chat or the Q&A. We will be following up by email with a link to the video and some questions to follow up from the tour. So hopefully, if there are other questions that come to mind after this is done, we'll be able to stay connected and make sure those questions get answered.
Sure.
And it's actually
All right.
it's 2 on the dot, so nicely done, Allison.
Yeah,
Very
well,
timely.
Sorry about the video mishap. That spared me a couple of minutes, or maybe I would have gone over. But but sure. Ken, did you have any last comments that you'd like to share as well?
No, I didn't, Allison. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your day to see our farms. Hopefully one day soon it can be in person. And if there's any other follow-up questions beyond this, feel free to reach out to the coordinators of this call or this tour, and they can send your questions to me. I'm happy to answer whatever you may want to know. So
Sure.
Thanks, and appreciate your time.
Yeah. And then one last little tidbit. I mentioned our website earlier. So MVPDairyLLC.com. The other one is McCartyFamilyFarms.com. You can certainly dig into some more information on there. But please, we are active on social media. So find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and track us down, or you can sign up for a newsletter on either of the websites. So I hope you guys stay in touch with us, and feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions ever. No questions too silly. Just let us know. We're happy to share more about what we do here. So Amanda, we'll leave it with you.
Thank you. Yep. So that concludes today. Thank you so much to Allison and Ken and our entire milk team. We have an incredible team, who supports our, the way that we work with our farms and our farmers, and the way that we, practice to make our products as best as we can. And thank you really to everyone who collaborated on this. I'm so thrilled to have so many dietitians joining and learning about, how we do our business in terms of dairy. So with that, I'm trying. I see some comments and questions coming in, of course, right now. There's no hashtag. If you want to tag, just at Danone North America is our handle on Instagram and on Twitter. We can certainly follow up with the names and bios of the speakers. What else? Thank you. Yes. Thank you all for coming. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you learned something. And of course, if there's anything that you're still wondering, please feel free to reach out. We would love to stay connected.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye,
Have a good day.
everybody.